The starship Amity drifted through the velvet silence of interstellar space, its hull humming softly with the pulse of antimatter reactors. Within the ship's colossal training wing, a lecture hall the size of a small city awaited its latest cohort of cadets. Polished alloy benches lined up in tiered rows faced a massive hollow screen at the front, its surface currently dark. As though holding its breath, one by one, 20 cadets filed in. Their uniforms, tailored from iridescent ceremetal weaves, shimmered faintly in the hall's ambient light. They carried themselves with the rigid poise of classical soldiers and the eager energy of apprentices on the brink of mastery. Among them was Cadet Shyla, whose slate gray eyes betrayed a flicker of nervous excitement, and Cadet Marak, tall and wide-shouldered, whose calm confidence lent him the air of a natural leader. At precisely 0800 ship's time, Commander Varlas strode onto the dais. His armor was darker than the cadets, marking him as a veteran. Scratches and burn marks etched stories of countless skirmishes. His voice, when he spoke, was a low rumble, amplified by the hall's acoustic resonators. Welcome to the first and most important lesson in any true warrior's education. Varlas began. Slow steps carried him across the dais, each echoing like a war drum. You have studied enemy hull designs, tactics of dozens of xenospecies, and the ethics of engagement. But nothing can prepare you for the raw brutality of war as humans waged it. Today, you will witness the great human wars of Earth. A flick of Varlas's wrist sent tendrils of data spiraling upward. The holoscreen ignited with a kaleidoscope of colors: steel-gray tanks, olive-drab trenches, and the jagged silhouettes of ruined skyscrapers burning against polluted skies. The cadets leaned forward. Some exchanged intrigued glances, eager for the spectacle of conflict's choreography. The footage began with sweeping panoramas. Armored columns rolling across blasted plains, giant walkers striding past shattered villages, and squadrons of orbital fighters cutting through emerald clouds only to unleash searing plasma on the cities below. The crunch of metalloid boots, the whine of railguns, and the boom of nuclear ordnance reverberated through the hall's subwoofers. Fascination rippled through the audience. Few had ever heard such sonic violence so close. Then the camera slipped inside a civilian dwelling. The room was little more than a shell. Walls pocked by shrapnel, support beams collapsed like broken ribs. Water pooled on the floor from ruptured pipes, reflecting the blinking emergency lights. In the corner, huddled a human family, now ghosts of its former selves. The mother's arm draped limp across her daughter's shoulders, eyes vacant and unseen. The daughter, hair stained with dust and blood, pressed her ear against the mother's chest, listening for the final flutter of a heartbeat. A sudden, wrenching gasp echoed through the hall. Cadet Marak's hand flew to his mouth. Cadet Schuyler recoiled, her knuckles whitening as she gripped a bench's edge. A few seated further back twisted to look away, their eyes squeezed shut. Commander Varlas let the scene play out for a moment longer, then cut the feed. Silence descended, a thick, choking thing that pressed against every ceramical panel. The only sound was the faint hum of the ship's life support systems. Why did they do this? Whispered Cadet Rowe, voice trembling louder than intended. The question hung, raw and open. Varlas's gaze swept the room. Because they believed victory justified any means. Because they turned war into an industry. He paused, letting the weight of history sink in. This footage is not entertainment. It is a warning. We study it not to revel in human madness, but to learn its lessons. Cadet Tyre, pale behind her visor, raised a trembling hand. Commander, how did anyone survive it? Varlas inclined his head. Survival required more than firepower. It demanded strategy, alliances, and most crucially, restraint. That restraint is what we must cultivate. He tapped the holopad at his side. Tomorrow, we'll analyze. The Battle of Ares Plains in detail. Today, I want you to sit with this image, this horror, and ask yourselves, how would you have responded? What choices would you make differently? Slowly, the cadets nodded. Their rigid postures softened by the weight of introspection. As they rose to depart, the holoscreen flickered off, leaving the hall in dim half-light. The first exposure to human war had shaken them to their cores. But as they filed out in silence, each one carried a spark of resolve and an unspoken fear of the darkness that any civilization, however advanced, might unleash upon itself. The training wing's holo-theater was colder on the second day, as if the memory of yesterday's images had frozen its walls. Commander Varlas stood at the front once more, flanked by 6 dataspheres that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Only 18 cadets remained. 2 had excused themselves the night before, unable to shake the terror they'd witnessed. Today, Varlas began, voice steady yet grave, you will see not just battles, but the methods humans devised to make war inexorable. He touched the nearest sphere. With a hiss of photon streams, the holoscreen sprang to life. Siege of Monachus Ridge. A fortress of sand-colored barricades crouched beneath a yellow sky lanced by radioactive wind. The human attackers, clad in lead-lined armor, pressed forward in waves, deploying squadrons of tunneling drones that burrowed under walls and detonated from below. When the dust settled, half the defenders lay melted into the earth. Cadet Schuyler's jaw clenched so tight that veins stood out on her temples. She crossed her arms, knuckles whitening against the ceramidal weave of her sleeve. Beside her, Cadet Avira swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the slow-motion replay of molten metal cascading through the barricades like liquid sunlight. Trenches of Varos 3. Next came a tableau of trenches gouged into scarlet soil. Human engineers had released swarms of Nanit's microscopic machines programmed to consume organic matter. The feed detached, close enough to see individual cells being deconstructed in real time, muscle fibers unraveling like threads, bone crumbling to powder. A single soldier, face obscured by a biofilter mask, succumbed to the swarm and fell into the mud, arms outstretched as though begging for release. Soft sobs rippled through the cadets. Cadet Marak turned sharply away, pressing a fist to his mouth. Cadet Zirin's breath caught in her throat. A tremor shook her frame. Varlas let the footage play until the soldier's mask fell away, revealing half his face raw tissue glistening, one eye unblinking. Then he cut the feed. Silence returned, thick and suffocating. Humans weaponized suffering itself, Varlas said, voice low. They believed if you collapsed an enemy's will, victory would follow. He flicked his wrist, summoning a third reel. Battle of the Coral Rim. Now the holoscreen dove into sparkling blue oceans, where human submarines unleashed viral mines that turned seawater into acid within minutes. Coastal cities crumbled as tsunami-like waves of chemical sludge roared ashore. The camera sank beneath the waves to reveal the reefs once teeming with life, now skeletons bleached white. Cadet Tyre's face went ashen. She rose unsteadily, helmet in hand. I can't watch this, she whispered. Before anyone could react, she turned and fled down the aisle, her boots echoing hollowly. Commander Varlas did not stop the projection. The other cadets watched Tyre's retreating form dissolve into the corridor's gloom. Moments later, Cadets Rowe and Relis followed, leaving empty rows in their wake. Varlas finally deactivated the holoscreen. Only 10 cadets remained. He surveyed them: Schuyler, Avira, Marak, Zirin, and 5 others whose faces were paler than their uniforms. Your fear is understandable, he said quietly. But remember why we study these horrors: to recognize the abyss, and in knowing it, choose another path. He tapped a command on his wristpad. Tomorrow, we examine human medicine turned weapon biological agents and their moral cost. Prepare yourselves. The 10 survivors filed out in near silence. Each carried the weight of human savagery in their hearts, some burdened by dread, others resolute to turn these lessons into a safeguard against repeating history's darkest mistakes. As the doors slid shut behind them, the hollow theater lights dimmed, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of war's most inhuman faces. 3 days after their initial screenings, the surviving 10 cadets drifted through the corridors of the Amity like ghosts. Sleep offered no refuge. Nightmares of collapsing cities and shifting trench mud stalked their dreams, leaving them drained. At dawn, Commander Varlas, noting their growing fatigue, announced an escalation of their training, a full-immersion holographic simulation designed to harden their resolve. In the vast holodeck bay, 8 floor-to-ceiling projectors stitched together a ruined human metropolis. Steam curled from shattered pipes. The pungent tang of burned oil and ozone filled recycled air. Neural interface helmets clicked onto the cadets' crowns, and the simulation began. At first, it was clinical. Cadet Bren led a squad through bombed-out streets, scanning for hostile survivors. Their orders: secure a crumbling hospital where reports indicated wounded civilians and enemy stragglers. Within seconds, blaster fire cracked from a half-buried alley, and the cadets responded with precise volleys. Synthetic foam sprayed across rubble. Hearts raced, but they prevailed. Then the scenario shifted. As Bren's team breached the hospital foyer, holographic projection shifted to reveal a group of unarmed refugees, elderly patients, a nurse clutching a bloody child, and 2 enemy soldiers raising empty hands. The command prompt blinked. Engage or stand down. Cadet Schuyler's visor tinted red under stress. Her pulse spiked. The interface counted down. Fire! Someone in her squad whispered. Schuyler's finger hovered over the trigger pad, then froze. In the next instant, the simulation replayed at half speed. The refugees' faces contorted in terror as energy blasts tore through the foyer. The nurse's scream reverberated in every cadet's ears. The display shut off abruptly, plunging them into darkness. Schuyler ripped off her helmet, eyes wide and unseeing. Commander Varlas's voice cut through the silence. You hesitated. In war, hesitation can cost lives, both friend and foe. Schuyler slumped to her knees. I couldn't, she whispered. Tears traced rivulets down her cheeks. They were helpless. They begged. Before Varlas could respond, Schuyler rose and saluted shakily. I resign, she said, voice trembling. I refuse to become that person. With helmet in hand, she left the bay, leaving behind stunned comrades. 2 more cadets, Cadet Avira, racked by guilt at her own failure to protect a simulated civilian shelter, and Cadet Laura, haunted by the anguished cries of synthetic children, also stepped forward. One by one, they relinquished their crests and walked away, heads bowed but spirits unbroken. When the holodeck doors sealed, only 4 cadets remained. Marak, whose steady aim had spared every surrendering foe. Zarin, whose keen strategy had minimized simulated civilian casualties. Bren, whose calm decisiveness had carried his squad through the nightmare. And Cadet Talon, unexpectedly stalwart under pressure. They stood in a ragged line, each breathing heavily. Commander Varlas removed his helmet and regarded them with quiet solemnity. You have seen the abyss and felt its pull, he said. Few can face it, and fewer still can look away. But if you remain, you bear a heavier burden. To carry these lessons forward, so that no galaxy should endure what humans once did. Marak stepped forward and tapped his chestplate. I will carry that burden, Commander. Zarin, Bren, and Talon echoed his vow in unison. As the holodeck lights faded, the 4 survivors emerged a tighter, tempered cadre forged in the crucible of human cruelty. Their numbers were small, but their resolve burned brighter than any weapon. They had reached the breaking point and survived. Dawnlight filtered through the observation dome as the Amity coasted above the cerulean world of Theridia, a neutral planet chosen for its tranquil seas and unspoiled forests. Below, waves lapped gently against silvery shores. Above, the sky shimmered in hues of emerald and gold. It was a world untouched by war, its peace a fragile promise against the dark lessons they carried. 4 cadets stood in the dome's quiet glow. Marek, Zarin, Bren, and Talon. Their uniforms were marked by weeks of relentless training scuffs on ceramidal, seemed slightly frayed, visors bearing the faintest smudge of soot. Yet their postures were unmistakably proud, not merely for endurance, but for transformation. Commander Varlas joined them, hands clasped behind his back. "You have journeyed through the heart of human darkness," he said softly, "and emerged not unscarred, but unbroken." His gaze drifted to the planets. "Horizon, now you know what war can become. Your task is to ensure it never becomes that again." Marek stepped forward, eyes bright. "Commander, we carry more than tactics. We carry their stories, every civilian caught in the crossfire, every soldier who begged for mercy. We will be the voices that warn, the hands that heal, and, only, if necessary, the shields that defend." Zarin nodded. "We will refine our engagement protocols. We will prioritize non-lethal options, conflict resolution, and defenses that protect rather than punish." She turned to her comrades. "We must also train diplomats, medics, and engineers alongside warriors." Bren inhaled deeply. "And we will forge alliances with worlds that have known peace longer than war. We will learn from them and share our knowledge. A galaxy united against senseless violence is stronger than any army." Talon, whose calm had carried them through the fiercest simulations, added, "Whenever orders conflict with the preservation of life, we will challenge those orders. We will be guardians of restraint." Commander Varlas allowed a rare smile. "You have taken your oath not to wage war, but to safeguard life. In doing so, you honor every soul lost in the great human wars." He reached into his uniform and produced 4 small medallions, each bearing the emblem of the Amity, an olive branch cradled by twin starships. Handing them out, he said, "Let this be your creed, mercy before might." The cadets clasped the medallions to their hearts. In that moment, the weight of every human tragedy settled upon them, but so did something else, a fierce hope, born from choosing compassion over carnage. As the Amity set a new course toward the Galactic Senate, its halls hummed not with the echoes of simulated suffering, but with the promise of change. 4 cadets, forged in terror and tempered by empathy, prepared to stand as bulwarks against the darkness. Their voyage had begun in fear. Now it would sail on courage, guided by remembrance and a vow never to repeat the horrors they had witnessed.